people, they missed out on those moments with their loved ones because of what was going on out of fear for safety.
How's it going? I'm your host, Enrique. Thank you for tuning in on another episode. Today we have a very extraordinary and very talented guest, David, from his days at UIC, getting his bachelor's in fine arts, from corporate America, being a trainer, from being a massage therapist to a photographer. Welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much for being on here.
Man, how's it going, man? Thank you very much. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit about you. You do event photography, you do portraits, you do it all, man. Why don't you tell the people a little bit more about what you specialize in and what kind of photography you like to do?
One thing I really love is when somebody's on the stage, because it's one thing when you're practicing, but it's another thing when you're performing. You know, because when you practice, you know there's a do-over. But when you're on stage, that's it. You know, and I work on like a lot of dancers, especially samba dancers. They move really quick. So It's like you got to be able to catch it, but also it's like they're putting on its beauty, its art, its athleticism because they're athletes. So it's great, you know, to just be able to see that the body in motion and express themselves and just do it with flair.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me how you sort of got into the craft of photography.
Well, I was in school and I was studying kinesiology, and I realized like at that moment in time, like those classes were like very difficult. I'm like, man, why is my mind, you know, going on? It was like right after the recession, so there's like a lot of stuff going on. I was like, man, you know, but I went into I went to the art program. I initially went to learn to like draw and stuff, but it was like I realized what I saw in my mind and what I was creating wasn't on the same page.
Okay.
But at UIC at the program, you had to take like 6 different classes, you know, to kind of see where you're at. And so drawing was like, it was all right. It was cool because that's what I was familiar with. Sculpture was really my thing. Graphic design really wasn't my thing. But once industrial design was like, because it was drawing, right? But it was like drawing shapes in space. But then when I picked up the camera, it's like, oh, this is just like drawing. It's just a different thing.
Different medium.
Yeah, and come to find out, photography literally means drawing with light. You know, photo, light, and graph means drawing. So it's like, you know, you got a graphite pencil, so you're drawing. You're just having to draw with light. So when I heard that about a year or two ago, it clicked. So it's like, but where I got into it was like the summer I graduated. One of my buddies, he invited me to one of his friends who was performing at Navy Pier. Her name is Miss Miscellanea. I got to shout her out because she was the first person I photographed. So Miss Miscellanea, Christopher Vosnick, thank you very much. We got to reconnect at CLICKCON this past summer. But my buddy Jody, he was like, hey, my friend, she's going to be performing. You met her before. And I was like, dude, I don't know who you're talking about. He's like, you met her before at the Halloween party. He was like, who was she? He was like, she was Bride of Frankenstein. And she had this big, like, that Marge Simpson hair. You know?
Way.
Yeah. And I was like, wow. So he was like, well, you should have led with that, you know?
Right.
So we saw her and she performed. And that was the first time I saw somebody, like, who was 6 degrees separation, which is one person removed from me that performed on stage. And when I saw it, it was very beautiful. It touched me. I was like, wow, it'd be really cool to kind of like capture that. So after her performance, I talked to like, you know, I'm kind of getting into photography. I would like to learn. She's like, cool, yeah, whenever I have a show, we'll hook up. And then about a month or so afterward, one of my buddies, my good buddy, his name's John Summers. I got to shout him out. Thank you, John. I appreciate you. I love you.
Shout out, John.
Yeah, John Summers. I love you, buddy. Congratulations. He had a camera that he was working at Radio Shack. So this tells you.
Wow. We're talking Radio Shack.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And he had, actually, I got to go back when I was in school. But his name's Mark McLean. I met him at the gym, and I was telling him to get involved in photography. And I got a Canon Digital Rebel, the first digital one from him. And so that's how I learned the first SLR, the first digital one that Canon produced. And then fast forward, you know, I played around with it, and it was cool. But then when my buddy John, this is like 2015, he was like, man, I got this camera. I know you're trying to get in photography. He's like, man, I'll sell it to you. And I was like, okay, cool. So he was like, man, you just pay me whatever. And I was like, man, I appreciate you. And I actually got that on my birthday. Yeah, it's 2015 on my birthday.
Nice.
And I was playing around with it. It was newer technology. And I was like, cool. And Krista, she hit me up. And I would just learn to photograph her when she was out. And that's how I grew, man.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And I love to hear it because you and I have an interesting history.
Yes, we do.
To go back, before you had started at Luma, Light Up My Arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Luma 8. You were in the corporate America, likewise, like I was. You were doing fitness and massage therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We actually met through those mediums before you even got into photography. And while I was just, starting my career, what I believe,
Awesome.
For those of you who don't know, I used to be a photographer for H&M, the retail company. And you happened to come to their corporate office.
Yes.
And we're giving massage therapy sessions in our office. And that's where we had met. Yeah,
we were doing a chair massage for a company event. And I remember I saw you was playing around with the cameras. You had this rig. And I was like, man, I'm all like super hyper curious. Just like when I walked in here, I'm seeing all this stuff. I'm like a little kid in a candy store now. And I'm like, man, we met. I'm like, man, what you doing? You saying all these terms and technology I didn't know anything about, but I just saw a camera and I saw lights and I saw a backdrop. So it was cool. And I was like, man, and I think that's right. That was probably 2016.
I was going to say 16. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like right after I got that camera. And I think I got like a 50 millimeter 1.4 right around that time.
Nice.
I love that lens.
And it's a great way to start. You don't really need anything other than the kit,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the more lenses you have in your arsenal, the more choices you have, and sometimes the less complicated the process can be. But if you're forced to stick with your Nifty 50 or the 2470 kit, it forces you to find creative ways to capture that image or to tell that story, right? But yeah, and then so shortly, not shortly, a few years later, after we had our brief interaction, I believe I was doing a corporate video for H&M at that time. Not shortly after, quite a while after, 2021, I believe is when we met again at CLICKCON.
2022.
2022, yes. And you were volunteering for CLICKCON. Shout out Sherry.
Yes, CLICKCON. Hey, y'all legit, for real. I got you. Yup. You guys are awesome with what you're doing, seriously.
Yeah, no, and I love the event, what she's doing, the vendors there, the participants, the classes. I think it's a fantastic event to sort of bring a community together. But yeah, I was ecstatic to see you at that event holding a camera. You had two bodies, if I'm not mistaken. You were rolling deep with the gear, and I was just... there was this overwhelming sense of like, this is what it's about, accomplishing your dreams, becoming an artist. Because when we had last spoken at H&M, I was like, keep at it, keep doing it.
Yeah, you did say that.
And because you had mentioned to me, I just got my camera and whatnot, and to see you at CLICKCON, I was just so happy to see you there, man. And I'm glad that we got some pictures in. And I thought I definitely have to have him on the show because although we don't really have much of a working relationship or friendship, I still admire the interactions that we did have, and I was like, I got to get him on the show, So from where you started to where you are now, what are some of your favorite projects that come to mind? And what are some projects that you have to look forward to?
So one thing that I really enjoy about photography is my background in healthcare is, you have healing in your hands, right? And when you touch somebody or make contact, they can get better. And contact doesn't have to be physical. It could be a call. It can be a card. It could be a text message. It could be a photograph. So, these past few years, we had the whole social distancing thing, right?
Right.
And so one thing I really enjoy is once once things started I don't want to say die down, once things started to open up, my thing was like with people, if you're at a family event, and you're photographing somebody, have them hug each other, touch each other, act like, I would say act like you like each other, but
that's my favorite line,
seriously, because it's like, if you're at a wedding or a quinceanera or birthday party, you're having a lot of people in one space, which 4 years ago, we couldn't do that, right?
Right.
And a lot of times people, they missed out on those moments with their loved ones because of what was going on out of fear for safety. And regardless of how, people feel about it, it was like that was what was happening for the majority of people. So one thing I really enjoy is like having that sense of unity, people like coming together, hugging, loving each other. And because once we get older and once we're about to pass on, we're not going to really remember time in a chronological sense. We're going to remember those moments, time you got married, time you had a kid, time you got that promotion, the times that weren't so good, but those times when you bring them together, that makes up the human experience, and how, we celebrate the great times, the loved ones. Those times we kind of like get down, it's like, okay, you kind of pull back, you kind of hibernate, you take your time, be around good, healthy people, and then you come back a little stronger, a little wiser. So that's one thing I really want to focus on, is like really showing that sense of community and culture. Because if you think about it, a family is the building block of culture. If you have one family from a particular group, okay, cool, that's like a certain aspect of a culture. But if you have 10, 20, 50, 100, 20 of them, that's a neighborhood, that's a city, that's a country, that's a nation. So it's like it's a building block of a family.
Absolutely. And I love that you put that. And that is actually our third segment of the show. And I love that you have that sort of sense of community, because that's sort of what the basis of the studio is building a community of creatives, creating a safe haven for creatives, a space of collaboration, right? Bringing each other up.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
But going back to the original question, there's no particular event, wedding, or quinceañera that stands out to you that brings you a lot of fond memories or joy.
Actually, this was this past summer.
And, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So I was with my buddy, Felix Sanchez, F-Stop 360, and we were working with we've been under tutelage of Victor Dupree. I'm shouting out everybody, so thanks, brother. Happy birthday, love both you guys. And we were doing a wedding, and so it's towards the end. Everything was going very well. My buddy, there's a piano there, right? My buddy Felix starts playing the piano. And I'm like, because I knew he was a musician, but he starts playing the piano, and the groom starts crying. And I was like, dude, that's like, you got to keep that in the back pocket, man. You know what I'm saying? You do it whatever. Let me just thought. But it was like, wow, like those things you learn about people. And, and it was how he and I met. It was a similar thing. You go to these events, you meet people, you go to another, you see them again, you guys collaborate.
Right. Do you have any projects that you're looking forward to in 2024?
I'm looking to get more into video, and that's one thing I really want to do, like think of things as a photographer more of like of a director, not necessarily like a film, but just creating the moving image, because you have the image, you have sound, and then you have words, and then you have a narrative of what you're trying to say.
Right.
With photographs, you do tell, it's like a comic book, right? Or a newspaper. You're figuring out the story. But with the movie, there's more elements to it. There's more layers. So that's one thing I'm going to be focusing more on, is like getting more into the video aspect.
Nice.
And also I want to really like push it with portraiture.
Very nice.
So like you can take a look at a portrait, and like, well, one thing I do is I love thinking about the background. So if you
It's very important.
Yes.
It's very important.
I think you tell a story, you have an actor in a setting, right? Like think Star Wars, you have Luke Skywalker on Tatooine, and he's part of that. Or Batman Gotham City,
Right, yeah.
So one thing I'm going to be focusing more is like when I take a portrait, there's going to be something in the background that's going to like be a reflection of the person being photographed.
I love that. That's very interesting. I look forward to that series. But Speaking on, which is a really good transition, speaking of portraiture and event photography, what are some of the misconceptions that people have when it comes to that type of line of work? And what advice do you have for those who are trying to get into the line of work that you're in?
I would say with portrait photography, the best thing you could do is create rapport, because there's been times where I photograph someone, hey, how's it going? And then you talk to them for a little bit. You find about their dreams. You find about, somebody, they may have just lost their mom, or they just, may have, got married. And when you find out more about them and you find out about their journey, their struggles, and how they overcame them, you start to see their whole demeanor change. Like somebody could be real square, real stiff, but then when you start talking about who they are as a human being, they start loosening up. They'll smile a little bit. You see a little twinkle in the eye. And then when you take those pictures, you put them side by side, it looks similar, but you look like two different people. With event photography, it's you have to be hyper focused on multiple things at once. So it's like I got to be focused on you, and like let's say I'm taking a picture of you, and let's say you're drinking something. Like, what if he's a politician? And I put that picture out, and somebody sees that, one of their enemies, they could take that picture and weaponize it. This was a few years ago. I actually got to meet General Stanley McChrystal at the University of Chicago. So he was, if I'm not mistaken, he was leading the U.S. U.S. Army, the military in Afghanistan during a segment over there. And I came and I had my backpack and I had my camera bag. And he was like, wow, you got a lot of gear. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I have a cousin who's in the military. I was like, yeah, I'm trying to be like my cousin. He was in the military. He was like, yeah, but you're more dangerous. Yeah, and I had to think about that. I was like, wow, because, if we have let's say, again, somebody's trying to run for mayor or they're trying to run for president, they're younger in the game, and let's say they could be drinking grape juice. But if somebody were to take that, what could they do with it? Especially, with AI and, memes, and you can do whatever you want. So there's always something you got to be mindful of,
It's about that perception, and what message you're spreading, what context you catch your subject in. With events, I never really thought of it that way, but it's very important to be cautious about who you're photographing and what you're photographing them on, and that's some very good advice. I never really thought of that way. For me, my approach is typically, hey, let me get a portrait, or hey, let me get a group shot, get them comfortable with me being there, so that way I can circle back and get those candids, right? But when I'm getting those candids, I don't really think of those kind of things, and I'm glad that you brought that to light, because it is very important. And that concludes our deep dive. I'm very happy that you were able to tell us a little bit more about you, your line of work, what you got going on, some of your prior projects, and what we can expect. So I'm excited to see those portraits with that element. Keep us posted on that. But we're gonna jump into our next segment, which is called Spray and Pray. Are you familiar with the term?
I'm somewhat familiar. Yes.
For those of you who don't know, spray and pray is a term used amongst us creatives, photographers, videographers. So when you hold the shutter button, spraying a bunch of images and praying at the end that you get something.
Oh, man.
So right now, we're going to get into spray and pray. I'm going to give you 3 images.
Okay.
You have Lightroom Classic or Photoshop to choose from. You can edit in whichever one program. As you are editing these 3 images, you can only choose one.
Okay.
I'm going to set a 3-minute timer. You have 3 minutes to edit the photos. As you are editing the photo, I'm going to start spraying a bunch of questions at you.
Okay.
You're going to have to edit the photo and then answer the questions as we go.
Awesome.
Are you Lightroom Classic or Photoshop?
Is it Camera Raw Photoshop or just Photoshop traditional?
Just traditional Photoshop.
Give me a Lightroom Classic.
Give you a Lightroom Classic. Okay, cool. I love giving people the option of Photoshop with the new AI generatives to let people be as creative as they want. But
okay, here
are the 3 images. We have a runway, a portrait, and then an art exhibition photo. So you choose. It's some of the similar work that you've done prior.
Okay.
And here are the 3 images that he has to choose from. And once you've chosen the image that you want to edit, let me know, and I can get this timer started.
All right. Now, my setup is a little bit different.
I'll give you a second to get yourself
hold on.
adjusted.
Let me see.
Just go ahead and look around.
Okay.
The questions that I will be asking aren't going to be too in-depth. It's essentially this or that. So you're going to choose tea over coffee, right?
Okay.
So, and it is photo related. So hopefully you can. Just let me know when you're ready.
All right, I got it.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. And we are off here. The timer just started. So here we go. First question. Reading or audiobooks?
Audiobooks.
Okay, very nice. Music or podcasts?
Right now, podcasts.
Podcasts.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in on our podcast. Thank you for attending our podcast. Movies or series?
Oh, man. I would have to say movies.
Movies. Okay, cool. Headphones or earbuds?
I would say headphones.
Headphones. Okay, cool. Android or iPhone?
iPhone all day.
He said all day. You were quick to answer that one. Laptop or tablet?
Laptop.
Laptop. Okay. PC or Mac?
Mac.
Mac. So you're not having fun on my computer, are you?
Well, I started out with with
Windows.
Yeah.
Alrighty. 2 minutes left.
Okay, gotcha.
Urban or suburban?
I would say urban.
Urban. Likewise. Sony or Canon?
All right. So, oh man. If I had a gun in my head,
Yes.
I would have to say, I would definitely have to say Canon.
Okay, cool. Nikon or Fuji?
Huh? Next, Canon. Here's the thing. I've never really used Nikon or Fuji.
Fuji, okay.
But
if you had to choose one,
I'll probably say Fuji.
Fuji, okay.
Yeah.
Flash or continuous?
I would say continuous.
Okay. Gimbal or handheld?
Gimbal.
Alrighty. You have a minute left. Capture One or Lightroom?
I've never used Capture One, so I have to go with Lightroom.
So this is more so for video. Premiere or DaVinci?
I've only used Premiere.
Okay, Premiere. TikTok or Instagram?
Haven't really used TikTok, but I'll say Instagram.
Instagram? Okay. Twitter or Reddit?
I would have to go with Reddit.
Reddit? Okay. Film or digital?
Digital.
30 seconds left.
Okay.
Studio or on location?
I would have to say I'm learning about studio. Most of my stuff has been on location.
Okay.
So
You'd have to choose on location.
Yeah.
All right. Short form or long form content?
Long form.
Long form? Okay. Pre-production or post-production?
Post-production.
Last one. Photo or video?
I would have to say video.
Video, and the timer stops. Which one out of the 3 did you choose? Did you choose the portrait, the runway, or the exhibition?
The runway.
The runway. Okay, cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the edit that you made?
Yes, it's of a woman. She's on a runway, and there's people with their phones in front of her. And so she has like a pink dress. It has I want to say that's gold or brown on the sides, and she's in mid-stride.
Nice. Did you add any masks? Did you increase the vibrance or the saturation?
The first thing I did was it came out a little warm because when it's dark, it's going to be a little warm, and so I don't want to have it where it's red, but then I don't want them looking cold.
Right.
So most of the people who I photograph are slightly darker than me, right?
Okay.
So I want to keep that warmth in their skin.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you participating in Spray and Pray. And I kind of want to go over quickly before we move on to the next segment why you chose some of the ones that you chose. You chose iPhone over Android. How dare you? I'm actually still an Android user, but I get a lot of heat for being Android and the green bubble and stuff like that. So have you always had an iPhone, or what phone did you start off with?
Actually, my first smartphone was a Samsung Vibrant, which was actually technically the Galaxy S.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
You said podcast. Do you have any podcast recommendations, anything that you're listening to right now that you want to tell the audience?
Yes, I'm listening to Steve Carty. He's a photographer out in Toronto. Steve Carty, shout out. Thank you for replying to my comment earlier today.
Oh, nice.
And one thing is, it's like, when you're a photographer, you go to school, you learn, but it's like, and it's good that you learn there, especially at the time I went, it was before the whole digital marketplace was like big,
right.
But he's like really kind of breaking things down about, okay, like as a photographer, these are things you can do to, find success. So
nice.
Hearing it and seeing, you get two visual inputs. That's why it's like, plus it's in motion, you can drive or do whatever. So you're just kind of getting to your mind.
Right. Very nice. And then you said, which actually surprised me, you said continuous over flash. Why is that? You're primarily a photographer, right? I'm surprised you chose continuous. So, is there a particular reason?
Well, one thing is like, all right, so these are continuous lights, right?
Right.
And if I can see what I get, I don't have to do too much thinking, So it's like I just want to get it and get done with it,
Yeah.
And then one thing, like, even though I do like flash, I've used flash more. If you're in an event and there's different types of light, it's like, especially if you have a flash on, especially on your camera, then you have to worry about like angles and things like that, or even if you're working with a portrait in the studio. But if this is the light I'm working with, then I know what I'm working with, But right. I mean, honestly, using both is great though.
No, yeah, absolutely. I definitely encourage a lot of people to use flash. In the beginning of my career, actually, when we had first met, I was still using continuous. It still gets the job done. If you only have the resources to use continuous, use what you got. Don't use excuses. I had newer soft boxes with a regular bulb in it,
Oh yeah.
It gets the job done, and a lot of the beginning of my career, it was used on that, Now I have fancy strobes, which is nice, but no, yeah, I'm for you on that one. Continuous, you know what you're getting, Strobe is a whole different animal and a whole different way of working. So, and then last one I want to touch on before we move on to the next segment. You said video. Tell me more about that. Why did you choose video?
So I've been doing photo for a real long time. I love photography, and I always see a photo as like, if this is time, if this is like, let's say this is a river of time, a photo is a segment of that. And it's not necessarily removed from it. It's just that's where we're focusing on in that moment in time. But see, video, and I'm learning this, so I'm kind of like going through a transition right now, is that with video, you can really, like, you can hear someone's voice. And it's kind of like the old Superman movie where he's hearing his father talk. Like, you can't get that with photo alone. But if you can get the visual, get the music, and you get a voice, technically that's a movie, right? And then one thing is, when you play that back, you can always remember somebody's voice. So, it's one thing like, man, remember that time we hung out at CLICKCON? Yeah, well, we got a picture of it.
We do.
And it would be even better if we had video of it. Because if we had video, then it's like, man, remember that time? Yeah, we could look at hairstyles, hear each other's laugh and things like that. So I think in the grand scheme of things, hearing somebody's voice, especially like today, not only do we get to read Martin Luther King Jr. Speech, but we get to hear it.
Hear it, yeah.
And that's much more pop when you hear it than if you just read it.
Absolutely. No, yeah. Thank you so much for participating in Spray and Pray. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
Yes.
I look forward to the audience seeing the edits that you made. Moving on to the next segment, questions and community. We had touched on it, and I said, wait, let's save this conversation for the podcast. Yes. I said, hold on. Like I had said in the beginning of the show, this show, not just the show, the podcast or the studio, is one of my goals is to sort of build a community. And we had touched on that. You started speaking on, and I love using this reference, a movie set. It doesn't take just one person to create a movie or a masterpiece like that. You have sound design, costume design, set design. You have gaffers, you have talents, you have a director, a producer, a cinematographer. Like there's so many roles. And at the end of the movie, you see everyone listed from visual effects artists to sound design, everybody, right? And I feel like that's not really translated too much in our field as far as photography goes, right? Little and little, I'm seeing it from artists here and there, which I really like. Sometimes they'll make a post, shout out to those who do use this way of working when it comes to posting. They'll tag the makeup artist, they'll tag the designer, they'll tag the model, the production assistant. And I truly appreciate that because it goes to show that this craft, although it can take one person to do, it feels better and it is completed much better when it's with a team, right? What community, if any creative one in particular, or even outside of creative communities, do you associate with most?
So one thing I started with, like the Brazilian and Colombian community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So after I hung out, with Krista, her and I, we were creating for a good year together. She'd have a show. I'd go up there and photograph. And it was one person, right? But, it's a short story. I actually happened to meet somebody from Brazil, at a massage event at a church, right? It was almost 7 years ago. And long story short, we hung out, we went to a museum, it was really cool. The next time she had a friend from Colombia, and so we hung out with Brazil, Colombia. Now this was summer 2017. We went to the Sears Tower and, hung out, took a picture or whatnot. Then a few months later, that's when I got to see the samba dancers perform, right? And it's a shock because one, it's not easy photographing one person, but it's easier photographing one person compared to 10 people with costumes, feathers, because what do I focus on? But when we got connected, it was different because even though I'm in the United States, I'm in Chicago, I was the only, native born United States person. And I felt almost like a foreigner, because I'm around all these cultures, hearing all these different languages, but they never treated me like that. And so that's how I really got to really just focus on a culture. Because, when you encounter a culture that's not yours, you'll get curious about it, right? And it's like, not only was I curious about the differences, but I was really learning about the similarities. And one thing about like the Brazilian and like the coastal Colombian community I met with is that's where black people went, during the Middle Passage. They went, during the Triangle Slave Trade. There was more Africans who went to South America than there were in North America. So yeah, that's a shock because we're not really taught that, right?
Right. I had no idea. You're teaching me. Yes. This is new to me.
So if I'm not mistaken, Brazil has the highest population of African people outside of Africa. Yeah, wow. They'll consider themselves black,
Wow.
And a lot of their culture, especially with the samba dances, was like reflected from like Western Africa. And even Colombia. I actually had a chance to go down to Colombia about 4 or 5 years ago for Carnival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, how was that experience?
It was cool, man, because I got to shout Columbia Fest, Ortega family, the Brazilian Cultural Center, all the samba dancers, like 8,000 of them, but y'all real cool. Y'all helped the brother out. But the really cool part about it is you go down there. I don't speak Spanish, but I was with a family and I got to experience the family. And, I was like hanging out people's homes. And the cool thing about that is you go to a place, you go to the hotel, you get the 5-star treatment, and it's kind of like, it's cool, it's great. But when you get to see someone's grandfather, when you get to have a beer with someone's grandfather, or, you get to see how somebody's culture, how proud they are of it, it's different. So being part of those communities, it was really cool. Got to meet a lot of people, and it makes me look at things a little bit differently. It's like, all right, so especially now in the world, there's a lot of differences people want to focus on. It's like, how can I relate with somebody? This is how we relate. We're at that time we met, we were working in two completely different fields, but we had a love for photography, right? And then now we're here. That was 8 years ago, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's like, when you have a common love for something, all that stuff, I mean, it's not that it doesn't matter. It does matter, but we're not looking at the differences. It's like, actually, your differences can look out for my blind spots, and mine can do yours. Or it's like, let's say we're making a big pot of soup. You might have a different spice than I do. You know what I'm saying? But if we add both the spices, that's how we get a real good meal,
Right, absolutely.
And it's a custom meal, too.
A custom meal, right, right. No, and I love that. And I love that you have a really strong sense of community. I know I've been longing for one. Growing up as a kid, I didn't really care for a community, nor did I care for a sense of one. And even when I moved out of my parents' house, moved to Chicago, I didn't really seek a community in particular. I just did my work. I went home, work, friends, family, home, work, right? And it wasn't until I came here where the city of Joliet sort of gave me that sense of community, the Latino community. So I didn't have to do anything with my field in particular. But then we participated in CLICKCON, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to find the community that I really want to continue to get involved in. And keep in mind, I've been doing this for so long, right? And I was just staying in my lane. So I love that you, like I, have that strong sense of community. Is there a particular creative community in the Chicagoland area that you do associate with most?
I would say there's a few like photographers. My buddy Ryan Brandoff, he's really helped me. He's been a mentor, and he's actually been a mutual friend of Krista, and he's a very great friend. We actually met skydiving.
Oh, very nice.
I would say, I've been really involved with like the nonprofit community.
Right, you worked with Toys for Tots and NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, NFL alumni, Toys for Tots. And because there's a lot of things going on now, and that we recognize, but we can always do like a little extra to kind of help out.
Yeah.
So one thing is, I'm really involved. We'll start to get involved with the recovery community in like Northwest Indiana and the Chicagoland area. As we know, since the pandemic, substance abuse has gone up, depression, anxiety gone up, and now we're kind of talking about it, especially as like people of color, especially as men, that we're not immune to it. And last year, one thing that happened was out of a childhood friend who passed away, and seeing how recovery, and it's something we got to really talk about more, because we're losing people, and we're losing them young.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think having a good backing, a good sense of community helps one get out of that feeling of isolation, right? And I think it's important to surround yourself with those who are going to continue to uplift you and motivate you, whether that be in the field of creatives or to do what you want to do, right? And I think that's why I'm so hung up on this community. Would you say you're really involved in the community of CLICKCON? I know you spoke. You not just volunteered. You spoke, right? Or you're speaking.
Yeah, I had a class last year, and it was a really cool experience. And I would like to do more of that, and just really just. I have taught classes at nonprofits too. Just one thing is, like, there's like two people who I would like to talk with. It's those ones who haven't found their fire, and the other whose flame is kind of like going out.
Yep.
Because it's one thing, like, So I work with a nonprofit. It's called For the Love of the Arts. It's in Northwest Indiana. Shout out FLA.
FLA?
Shout out, yeah. Thank you very much. God bless you for real. When you teach people about art who normally don't have access to it because of the community, the socioeconomic, as you know, I mean, it's not cheap doing this.
Absolutely not.
Right? And what happens is there's a large barrier, right? And there's a lot of creative people, but if you don't have the proper, or not even the proper tools, just any tool to be creative,
right,
your fire kind of goes out. But when you show somebody that, no, you aren't, all right, we're all creators. Everybody's a creative in something. If you create a business, look, you created livelihoods for people. Think about it. If you're a mechanic, you're creating a way for somebody to get to work. If you're an electrician, you're creating a way for somebody to heat their home. A lot of times we kind of separate, well, like if you're not a painter or that you're artist. No, we're all creating something. That's what your craft is. You're creating something. You're continuously getting better at it. I mean, if you're a carpenter, you're creating a home for people. We all need homes. So you're an artist, you're a creator. So, we're all creators, but we just have to find which avenue that we can create. And if you find your avenue, and there's going to be it's like a river. There's going to be like little branches. Like, if you like photography, well, videography is similar. Creating a podcast, audio tracks, voice recording. I mean, because when you create something like this, you have to deal with the audio. You have to deal with the visual, and if you're doing captions, you have to deal with the text. So just from being visually oriented photography, you go into videography, you go into sound, you go into text, which means you have to write things, which means you have to write a script. And so if somebody's reading from that script, they're technically an actor, right? They may not be a actor in a movie, but right then and there, they're an actor. So we all have a creative aspect. It's just a lot of times we're told that we're not. And if you're told something for 20, 30 years that what you're not, that's what you're going to believe. But like you said, like if you're around somebody who is artistic, but who recognizes your creative aspect, your creative talent, and who can support and nurture you, be in a nurturing environment, then you can confidently say, yes, I'm an artist and this is what I particularly create.
Yeah. And I completely agree. I love that. That was extremely well said. I feel like no matter what profession you're in, you're still a creative, because you sometimes run into issues, whether you're an electrician or a carpenter, you run into issues that force you to find creative solutions to what the issue had brought you, right? But yeah, you're creating homes, you're creating heat. And I love that, because I was told that, I believe, as a kid, but I forgot who. I believe a teacher or a professor, and it's true. We're all creatives in our own way, and I absolutely love that. I appreciate you, addressing the audience with that belief, because it's true. We all have a flame, and whether it's finding it or relighting it, go out there, involve yourself with the community that's going to uplift you, right? Whether it be a creative as ourselves or a creative in a different manner, right? Lastly, to finish this out, do you have any suggestions, any ideas for our industry as creatives? What can we do to build a bigger sense of community? What can we do to bring people together and bring everyone to create, collaborate, to be artists?
I think when we come together, realize that even though there may be somebody who's more in an executive role, we're all needed, right? So a lot of times, let's say if you think about a business, most important person, probably the CEO, right? And the CEO has a very, very significant role. But if there aren't people to answer the phone, admins, then who can disseminate the information. If you don't have custodians to clean, or if you don't have people to serve the food. So just recognizing that, let's say you're a Christian, right? You believe you're in the body of Christ, right? Christ is the head. All of us are part of the body. We all have an equal part. Look at our body. Like, is a leg more important than an arm? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like we all have equal parts. Even though the ones that you see, like if you have like a model or an actor, they have a very important role because we see it. But someone did their makeup. Someone did their hair. Someone styled them. Someone did fashion design. They were in a set. Somebody did lighting. They spent, how many hours have you set up the lighting? You see, it's like that's something people don't think about. Like, you set up the lighting, you making sure it's the right temperature so someone doesn't look like a zombie or they don't look like a tomato, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and having the light, making sure the sound, because like if you have a movie, most of the sound is fake, it's fabricated, right? But you have someone who creates that sound. And how many of us watch movies without sound? Not so in this century, the one before, right?
Right.
So I would say just, hey, we're all here to create a thing. We're a team. We're the 96 Bulls, right? Michael Jordan, of course, Michael Jordan was the man, right?
Right.
But he had teammates. And he had teammates who had specific roles. And when everybody did their role correctly, what happened? They won championships. So I would just say think of it like, I was actually talking to a guy, he's involved with wrestling, right? And he said, like, when they're doing wrestling, his goal is to help out his opponent, right? They talk about the match and I'm gonna make sure you don't get hurt. So it's like, yes, of course, watch out for take care of what you got to take care of, but also look out for somebody else. Like, hey, how's a way I can best support you? Because when we actively support each other, it becomes a better product. And, I think with Chicago, I think Chicago gets a bad rap. From my experience, there's been some really good opportunities for people to collaborate. People donating their space, their time, their energy. So it's really good. I just think sometimes, just taking a back seat to the big picture. Not saying that you make yourself insignificant, because you're very significant, but like, okay, what's the big picture? If this project goes well, then it works out for all of us. But if I just get shine, then, what I'm saying, it doesn't really work for anybody. You already get your reward. So really just support the community, support the craft, support each other, support the vision. And if you need help, ask for it. And if someone asks you for help, give it to them. Like if you're on a set or something, because you may meet up with that person and they may just ask you a question. You might build something. A quick little thing is Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson. Do you know what their first collaboration was?
Mm-mm.
It was a movie, The Wiz, right? And
I have not seen it.
It's like a cult classic. Like supposedly it was like, it didn't really make any money when it came out, but it's a cult classic. But when they got together, and Quincy Jones talking about this in his book, he said at the time he met Michael Jackson, people thought he was done. He was too old. But what happened? Michael Jackson came out with Off the Wall and changed everything. And it was from a movie that really wasn't successful. So it's like those times when you think, oh, it really was this. Like, who did you meet? Did you meet somebody who felt like you poured in them, they poured in you, guys created something together? Well, strengthen and maintain that relationship, because who knows, next time you might get a call. You called me, a month ago? Hey, you want to hop on a podcast? I was like, okay, cool. You know what I'm saying? And we didn't see each other for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But it's that interaction, the relationship. So if you build a relationship, between fellow creatives, no matter what field they're in, once you build that relationship, they may, let's say if somebody's a makeup artist, right? And hey, I'm looking for a videographer. Hey, I'm not a videographer, but I know one. Or if, you being a videographer podcast, somebody look for a makeup artist, you remember that one makeup artist. So you're like, okay, cool. I don't do makeup, but you do makeup. So you go ahead and do your makeup. And I'm going to refer that person to you, and I want you to succeed, because when I see you succeed, that means that project's going to succeed. And when that project succeeds, it's like that's how we all collaborate with each other because there's more work. There's a wider field.
Absolutely. No, I am a complete agreement. You know, there's been projects where I taken the back seat, you know, and I let, you know, I produced, making sure everyone's taking care of talent, you know, cameraman, director, and it was ultimately at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's about what the client or the business needs, or what the director needs. If it's a project that's personal to them, right? Whether it be a short film, documentary, whatever it may be. But no, I'm very happy. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Do you have any last messages that you want to tell the audience? Any projects that you want to give some people some insight that they can look forward to?
This year I'm going to be really focused on the portraiture, like really creative portraits where it's like you get to know somebody. I'm going to be getting involved in more video, and just also on a personal thing, I'm going to be really, it may not be photography related, but possibly could working more in the recovery community so we all can heal. Initially my career started as someone in the healthcare, and I believe with our images and our work, we can help people heal and get better. You know, you feel good when you see a good movie. You see a comedy, you're all laughing, feeling good. You know, so if we can use our art and our craft to make people feel better about themselves, not in a selfish way, but to kind of lift them up out of a pit, get them out of isolation, get them involved with the community. And that's the thing, if we can, let's use our art to really help create a new community, a healthier community where we look out for each other, we help each other, and we look out for those who can't like really help us back. You know, look out for the less fortunate. You know, our city, we've seen a lot of that in the city of Chicago, and Chicagoland area. But us as creators, as we do it, we can take random materials and create beauty and art out of it. So, you know, let's use our stuff to make a better world for the next generation.
I love that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in on this episode. Again, thank you, David, for coming on the show. Tune in to our next episode. If you want to find any of David's work, you can check in the links below. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome.
Peace.
Appreciate you guys.